Hi, welcome to my home. My name is Kathy, and in today's video we're going to be canning up some not so ugly chicken. If you like watching videos on canning and dehydrating and long-term food storage and a little bit of gardening and baking and whatever else I have up my sleeve, then please be sure to like this video. And if you're not already subscribed to my channel, please be sure to subscribe and make sure you hit that bell icon to be notified each time I put out a new video. So don't go away, because when we come back, I'm going to be in my kitchen and I'm going to show you how to get this not so ugly chicken put together. So what I have here is about 20 pounds of chicken breast. It's organic, free-range chicken that I got from Sam's Club. Half of the packets, actually three of the packages were on sale at $4.39 a pound, and then two of the packages were not on sale, and they were $5.86 a pound. I am hoping to get 18 pints of chicken canned up so that it's on my shelf and ready to use. Half of the chicken I'm going to do in cubes or chunks, and the other half I'm going to do in strips. That way I have a little bit of a variety on the shelf. So I'm just going to cut it into about 1-inch strips by about 1 inch. Chicken chunks would be good to use in like a chicken Alfredo, or for a quick chicken cacciatore, or even in a chicken soup or chicken pot pie. And you can cut your pieces smaller or bigger, whatever size you want for the dish that you want to use it in. I just find about a 1-inch chunk is a nice size, and then if I need smaller chunks, I can always cut the chunks up smaller for the meal that I'm prepping. You can also use this chicken to do like a chicken salad. These chicken breasts don't have really any fat on them. If I come across any chunks of fat, I will remove them. A little bit is not going to hurt, especially because today I am going to be searing the chicken before I can it. So like I said, this is a not so ugly chicken canning recipe. I sometimes do ugly chicken. Ugly chicken is so quick and easy to do. So any little bit of fat like that, it's going to sear off when I fry it up. with prices the way they are right now, being able to can your meat so that it's shelf stable is a really good way to take advantage of any sales that you come across, or even just being able to buy meat at today's prices, you know, and then eat it, you know, a month, 2 months, or, you know, 12, 18 months from now. It's a way to shield yourself from the food inflation right now. And having it on the pantry shelf is very convenient, because if you happen to have a power outage, there's no concern with it, you know, going bad or, you know, thawing out. It also doesn't take up any freezer space, so you can save your freezer for things that you can't or don't want to can. And canned meat can also be eaten right out of the jar. So if you have no way of heating food up, or if you don't want to use up, say, your propane or your limited fuel sources, the meat can be eaten as is right out of the jar, because it is going to be fully cooked by the time we are all done. Okay, so that's about half of the chicken that I have. So these ones I'm going to do in strips. I think these strips would be good for making maybe a quick fajita, quick batch of fajitas, maybe even some chicken tacos. Just trying to have a little bit of a variety so it's not all the same on the shelf. Anything that looks like it might make it unappetizing, just trim that off. Now today I'm going to be canning these in pint jars, but you could certainly do quarts as well if you wanted to, if you have a large family. What kind of recipe would you use the chicken for? Do you have a special recipe that, or dish that you could share with us that you use canned chicken in, or that you think you'd be able to use the canned chicken in? Cutting the chicken in strips is definitely a little more time consuming, but I think it'll be worth it. Put in a little bit of time now. When it comes time to using it for a meal prep, the time saver is definitely going to be on the meal prep side. I'm going to go ahead and clean up my prep area, and then I'll bring you back for the next step. Now that my prep station is all cleaned up, I have my jars out, I have my skillet heating up, I have some hot water heating up, and I also have my canner heating up. I'm going to be doing these in batches, so what I'm going to do is just put some, we'll start with the chunks, and I'm just going to put in a single layer in the skillet. I don't want the meat to be crowded, and what I'm looking for is just to sear the outside of the meat. I'm not trying to cook it. I just want a nice sear on it. Searing the meat is going to give it a nice flavor, and it's also going to change the texture profile from what it would be if I were to do an ugly chicken, which is just a raw pack. I don't want this to cook all the way because I want the cooking process to finish in the canner, because I don't want to overcook the meat. And because it's going to cook in the canner during the canning process, it's not necessary to cook the meat all the way. And having the inside of the meat still raw, as you're canning it, it'll allow the chicken to release those juices in the canning jar, which will just add to the flavor. You can also do this process in a roaster or in your oven if you don't want to do it in a skillet. Okay, I think this is good. I'm just going to go ahead and move the meat directly from my pan into my jar. Okay, that's not going to work. Poked right through the meat. The flavor's better. Gonna get it down in there. Don't want to have too many gaps in there. And I'm looking to leave an inch headspace. So good for that one. Now you notice I'm not seasoning the meat. I am going to add some seasoning to the jars before I add the water. But I want my flavors to be very neutral, and that'll just give me the versatility to be able to use it in a number of dishes. You can add flavoring if you want to. If there's specific dishes that you have in mind for the chicken, but I like to have it to where I can use it in any chicken dish that I want to use it in. I'll just flavor it when I'm making the final dish. Now that my water's hot, I'm going to move the pan to this back burner because the back burner is a bigger burner, and that way we can get this done a little bit quicker. little bit big. We'll just cut them down in the pan. My goal is to have 9 pints of each, the cubed and the strips. And anything extra I have, I'll probably just cook it up and throw it in the freezer. My canner will hold 9 pints on the bottom and another 9 on top, so that's why I'm limiting it to the 18. Using the disposable gloves to get the chicken from the bowl into the pan really saves on having to wash your hands. I also don't particularly care for the feeling of raw chicken. And again, we're not looking to cook it all the way through, we're just looking to get a little bit of browning on the outside. Go through, move some pieces around. We have enough meat in each jar. I'm just looking for 1 inch of headspace in each. Okay, now that I have my area reset, we'll go ahead and get the strips done. So just like the chunks, into the frying pan they go. I did go ahead and clean my frying pan because there was quite a bit of chicken stuck to the bottom, and I didn't want that to get all smoky, so I got it cleaned up so we can start fresh for the strips. Just like for the chunks, we're just looking for there to be a sear on the outside of the chicken. I'll go ahead and transfer it into our jar. These chicken strips, I think they'd be really good for using with a quick fajita meal or a chicken taco, or mix them with some peppers and onions and have like a chicken Philly cheesesteak sandwich, or even as a topping for a salad. Okay, now that all of my jars are filled with meat, I'm going to get the rest of the chicken strips put away, and then I'll come back and we'll do the next step. Okay, I'm going to start with putting 1/2 teaspoon of salt in each of my jars. This is optional. I'm using a pink Himalayan salt, a fine ground. You can use any good quality salt that you want. You just want to make sure that it doesn't have any iodine in it. I'm going to add a clove of garlic into 4 of the jars with chicken strips and 4 of the jars of chunks. just to give it a little extra something. Now I'm going to fill each of the jars with water. This is hot water up to the inch headspace mark. Okay, now that all my jars are filled, I'm going to debubble. Check my headspace. Well, that might have a little bit too much. Okay, perfect. I'm going to wipe my rim with vinegar. And I'm going to put on a lid. Fingertip tight and into the canner. Now this is a chunk. I'm going to put chunks on the bottom of my canner and the strips on top. I am going to be reusing some lids. So a few of these lids have been used before, but they're in very good shape. This is one of them. It's marked on the top. And so at the end, we'll see if they all seal or not. This is also a reuse lid, so I just want to make sure I mark that. And I think I overestimated how many jars my canner is going to hold. Since these are wide mouth jars, the canner is only going to hold 16 instead of 18. So I will just be doing 8 of each right now. And then I think I might end up doing, since I have extra meat in the refrigerator, I might end up doing an extra batch later on. So I'll go ahead and fill this one and seal it and just stick it in the refrigerator until I'm ready to do another batch. And cleaning your jars with vinegar is very important, especially when you're working with meat. Because if you have any oil or anything on the rim, it can prevent your jars from sealing. And cleaning your rims also gives you a chance to feel the rim in case there's a nick on the glass or any imperfections, because that will also keep them from sealing. Okay, now that all the jars are in the canner, I'm going to go ahead and get the lid on. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and get this tightened down, and then I'm going to start bringing the canner up to temperature, and I'll bring you back when it's time for the next step. Okay, now we have all of the jars in the canner. I've tightened down my lid. Now I'm going to bring this up to temperature. Once I have a steady stream of steam coming out of my vent, I will start the timer and I will vent my canner for 10 minutes. Once it's done venting for 10 minutes, that's when I'm going to put my weight on. Once this is done venting for 10 minutes, I'll bring you back and I'll talk about the weight that I'm going to use for my altitude. I'll also go over the weight or the pressure that you would use for your altitude and your particular canner according to the USDA. Okay, so I've got my steady stream of steam coming out of the vent, and I'm close to being able to put my weight on my canner. And so I thought I'd go ahead and just pop in here, and we'll go over the weight and the time to use. So my canner is an All-American. It is a weighted gauge pressure canner. So for the weighted gauge, I will be processing at 15 pounds of pressure because my altitude is above 1,000 feet. If your altitude is 0 up to 1,000 feet, you would process at a 10-pound weight. Now, if you're using a dial gauge canner, my Presto is a dial gauge. For a dial gauge, at 0 to 2,000 feet, you would process at 11 pounds of pressure. For 2001 to 4,000 feet altitude, you would process at 12 pounds. 4,001 up to 5,000 feet altitude, you would process at 13 pounds. And if you are above 6,000 feet, you would process at 14 pounds. And those guidelines are according to the USDA Complete Guide to Home Canning. Now, if you need to reference this for future use, you can, if you don't have the book, you can go to the USDA website and you can find the information there as well. Now, once I bring my canner up to pressure, I'm going to process the chicken for 75 minutes. Because this is a boneless chicken, it's 75 minutes. Now, everybody, regardless of your altitude, for pressure canning, you are going to process for the same time. So for pressure canning, the time remains the same, it's just the pressure that you process at changes, which is different than water bath canning, because water bath canning is everybody processes at a different time depending on their altitude. So that's the difference between the timing on water bath and the pressure canner. Once this is done steaming, I'm going to go ahead and put on my 15-pound weight, and once it comes up to pressure, I'll start my timer for 75 minutes, and once that's all done and I let my canner cool completely, I'll bring you back, I'll show you the end result, and we'll check to see if my reused lids held up and sealed properly. Well, here we have it. 16 jars of cooked chicken. Now I'm going to let this cool all the way so that I can make sure I can test the lids of the ones that were reused. So once these cool, I'll give the lids a test and we'll see which one sealed and if we had any failures. Okay, it's the next day. All of my jars have cooled completely. All of my lids did seal. So now I'm going to bring you in close. The 4 jars that I had reused lids on, I'm going to go ahead and take off the ring and give these jars a good test. I do want to add a disclaimer and mention that reusing canning lids is not a recommended practice. I do this. I know that there's many other canners that do this, but I am careful when I reuse lids. I check to make sure that there aren't any dents around the rim of the lid. I also check the seal to make sure that there aren't any scratches and that the seal looks like it still has a lot of life left to it. So, this right here is a lid that I would reuse again. I will often reuse my lids 2 or 3 times, but once they start to show wear and that there's not going to be a good sticky surface, or if it gets dented or I see scratches or anything like that on the inside, those ones I do set aside. Those are reserved just for my dry goods. So please, if you're not comfortable reusing your lids, then do not do it and just start with fresh lids every time. I also don't do an entire batch with reused lids. I will typically do 3 or 4 of the jars with reused lids if that's what I happen to grab out, but the majority of the jars going into my canner are going to be brand new lids. That way, if my reused lids don't seal, then I don't have an entire batch that's compromised. I have personally also found that the seal rate of my reused lids is no different than the seal rate on my brand new lids. I rarely have a jar that doesn't seal. So reusing lids is something that I'm comfortable doing. So please, do you. Don't follow me. But I do want to let you know that it can be done. And so if you're a canner that likes to reuse their lids or wants to reuse their lids, then, no shame in the game. Just, do it if you're comfortable doing it. Just make sure you inspect your lid very carefully before you decide whether or not you're going to reuse that particular lid. Okay, these jars in the front are the ones that I reused the lids on. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the ring on all 4. All the tops sealed. And now we're going to give it a test. So to test your seal, you're just going to lift up your jar by the lid. And as you can see, I'm giving it a little shake, and they are not budging. Well, all 4 of my reused lids sealed. They have a nice tight seal. So I will call that a success. Okay, so now I'm going to get my jars washed up. I'm going to label them with what's inside and the date they were canned. And then I'm going to get these on my pantry shelf. Now I will take the jars that have the reused lids, and those jars will go in the very front so that these are the ones that I use first. Because although they sealed now and they have a nice tight seal on them, there's no guarantee that these seals will last as long as the seals on the new lids will last. So I want to make sure that these ones get used first so I don't take the chance of having any future failure on my jar. But there you have it. We have 16 pints of chicken, shelf stable, and ready to be used whenever I'm ready to use it. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I hope you learned something new today. I've been putting off pressure canning some meat. I hope you'll give it a try so that you can get that meat out of your freezer, out of your refrigerator, and on the pantry shelf where you don't have to worry about a power outage or anything else that might come your way. Well, if you liked today's video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you're not already subscribed, please be sure to subscribe. And if you are subscribed, thank you so much. I really do appreciate you being here and for giving my channel support. Before you leave, also make sure you hit that bell icon to be notified each time I put out a video. And if you wouldn't mind sharing my video out so that it can reach more people, I'd really appreciate that. So until next time, I hope you have an amazing day, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye now.